Good morning to you again. Today we are repeating the um, devotion from yesterday as I learned that it had no audio on it. I do apologize for that. So, as we begin today, our great expectations and our focus being on that God is in control. And we accept that God is in control. Do we accept that God is in control? Can we help others to learn that God is in control? If you live like you know that God is in complete control of all things, I don't just mean that you say these words that God is in control of all things, but by the way you live, the way you live your life it is revealed that you have expectations uh, grounded on the fact that God is in control, that God's provision, and that no matter what happens, you don't have to be the one to fix it. You don't have to think you have to do it all, but let God do it through you. And that's the important thing, letting God do it through you. And that's trusting God that He will do so. And that's accepting that God is in control. This does not mean that you do nothing. It means that you set an example by showing that you can't fix it and you can't do this alone. You recognize that you have to let God be a part of your life and let God do it through you. So if you get that picture that's being painted here, are you taking it to God in prayer? Or are you worrying about it? Do you worry about the situation? Are you leaving the situation in God's hands? Are you giving God praise, thanking Him, even in the heat of the tough uh, times, the trials that we face in the midst of the pandemic and in the midst of this unrest? Are you praising God, or are you complaining to Him? Or are you complaining to everyone else? Think about it and analyze yourself. Do you trust God that everything's going to be okay? Do you always have to have the answers, or are you able to admit that some things are not meant for you to yet understand? The main question that we must answer honestly to ourselves is are you in control? Am I in control? Or have you totally and humbly surrendered to God's control? Have we totally and humbly surrendered to God's control? In Isaiah chapter 14, verse 24, it says, "The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, Surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand." So this passage alone lets us know what God thinks, what God declares, what God desires is going to be how He has His will come to pass. To refuse God's control is to reject His sovereignty. Why anyone would deny that God is in complete control would to some seem to be hard to understand. But there's an answer to this as to why, and you can see it all around us today. Most especially this time that we're currently in. You can see the answer in people's lives. So the question, why do some reject God's control completely and others somewhat reject God's control? And here is a lot of what the answer is. There may be many contributing factors, but first off, no doubt it begins with Satan. And the fact that Satan wanted to be equal to or greater than God. So naturally his deception to us today, his deception is to deceive man within his own mind that he is God. So he's saying Satan's desire is that man would think of himself as God. You get that? Satan would think of Satan. No, Satan would deceive man that man would think of himself as God. And in doing so, you know, every man, woman, and child, Satan's idea would be that they would think of themselves as all powerful, or able to do everything on their own, and not dependent upon anyone else. And not only does this pit every man, woman, and child against each other, you see that today. You see what's happening in our world today. And reality is every man, woman, and child are really against each other. And what you're seeing, there appears to be a sense of unity, but that's not really what it is. If you look closer at what's going on and what's being said, it's people for themselves. When God asked Job, where was he when God laid the foundations of the earth? It was a method of saying, did you form the earth? Did you even help me form the earth? The answer from all men to that particular question, man, woman, or child, should, and most will, say, answer correctly in their minds that they had nothing to do with laying the foundations of the earth. If I ask you that question, you most would say, I had nothing to do with that, and that's when you become the reality that you are not that powerful. So can you grasp now that God is sovereignly in complete control, as he does exist, and he did form the earth, and he did form everything therein, and thus he is in control of over it all. God's sovereignty should be defined as his complete and total independence. And in that sovereignty, he has control over every creature, every event, every circumstance, at every moment, and at any moment in time. Thus, God is subject to none. He is, no one rules above him. He's not influenced by anyone outside, but we allows us to ask him to do for us in prayer, and to answer our prayers. And absolutely, he is independent. God does what he pleases, when he pleases, how he pleases. God does and will always do as he pleases. If it does not fit in his ultimate plan for the betterment of his children, it's not going to be. God is in complete control, and everything that happens is either caused or allowed by him for his own perfect purpose and purposes. And that is what we as Christians must come to accept. What we as Christians must do is learn to live knowing that God is in control, trusting him fully and completely. Think about that as we begin to enter our next week. We'll begin to look at the next section of our great expectations, and I hope you do have a wonderful day. It's going to be a little cloudy, but I'm praying for you, and hope to see you soon.